so Wakanda basically in the comics is described as a fictional, I hate that word, hey? I think Wakanda actually is real. Secretly, I'm thinking. I'm willing to jump on that boat with everybody else. You know, if people think that Hogwarts, Star Wars, you know, and all these other, you know, comic book realities are real, Wakanda is real. It can actually be a reality. But what I thought I'd also mention is that Wakanda is probably, well, in the comics it says that it's in Northeast Africa, okay? So if you were to actually read the description, that kind of narrows it down to somewhere there in Ethiopia. I think the real life representation of Wakanda is Ethiopia, okay? I know that they speak Xhosa in the movie. That's mainly just because of the African actors that they have there, like John Kaini, etc. He's Xhosa. Okay, so obviously the Wakandan language will be Xhosa, okay? But secretly, I actually think that Wakanda really is in Northeast Africa. It will actually be Ethiopia, okay? Here's why, okay? Ethiopia is the only country in Africa that's never been colonized, okay? Yeah, I'd say just about every country during when was it, like the 1600s, during that time, it was called the Scramble for Africa, okay? And that's when European nations were invading Africa like crazy. Like the Belgians were pouring in from all over the place, the British, the French, the Germans, okay? So, and the Portuguese as well. So that's why you'll find that in Africa you've got Francophone countries, obviously they were colonized by the French. You've got Portuguese countries, Portuguese-speaking countries like Angola, etc. And then further down south in sub-Sahara Africa, the Germans took over Namibia, and then obviously the British and the English and the Dutch took over South Africa. And I think Madagascar as well, okay? So, but at some point Napoleon attempted to colonize Ethiopia, okay? And yeah, but he didn't succeed, and there's a lot of mythical folklore surrounding that situation, that Ethiopia basically possessed a very powerful energy source that actually stopped Napoleon's soldiers in their tracks. They couldn't go any further, okay? Unbelievable! The reason being is that it's believed that Ethiopia had access or power, you know, basically they had a power source of some sort that they could use, which was the Ark of the Covenant in the Bible. If you read Graham Hancock's book, okay, sorry, The Sign and the Seal, okay, that basically talks about the Ark of the Covenant, which is basically this mysterious technological device of great power, and many have basically called it demiurgic technology, which is very high and advanced technology, where basically you have this isometric crystal. Popularized it, okay, and it's this crystal that basically floated between the two angels in the Ark of the Covenant, and it had the nation of Israel actually was in possession of it, so people had to be trained to actually control that technology, and it was thought-based, so whatever you'd think, it could actually, you know, make it come to existence, okay? Hence why it's called demiurgic. There's a bit of Gnostic text. If you read the Gnostic text and everything, okay, it goes back to that. So it's very advanced, too advanced, I think, because if you have to be around that thing, you'd have to control your thoughts at every second, okay? So at some point, King Menelik smuggled it out of Israel when the nation of Israel started to basically use it for all the wrong reasons. It stopped working, and then he took it out of Israel, took it down to Ethiopia. But there's lots of theories. Some people actually believe that the Ark of the Covenant is actually somewhere in the Money Pit, a place called the Money Pit in Canada. Others say that it's in Europe. Others say that it's in America. Who knows? Some people even said that it's actually in where the Bermuda Triangle is now, or the Dragon or the Devil's Triangle in that, that sea where Japan is. But this book basically covers a lot of research that Graham Hancock did, and apparently it might actually still be in Ethiopia, and it could be the very reason why Ethiopia still to this day has never been colonized, because they used it to basically defend their borders and decimated Napoleon's army, or whoever tried after Napoleon to invade Ethiopia. Okay, so it's been in, and then Haile Selassie, is the great descendant of King Menelik.
Audiocraft music.
Who was Queen Sheba's son, who was in a relationship, I think, with King Solomon at the time. It's a very interesting. So for that reason, I think Wakanda, the real life representation of Wakanda, in possession of a super high, super advanced technology, is Ethiopia. And I think Stan Lee and Jack Kirby probably read about that and decided to actually play around with this Afro-punk futuristic city but it's hidden, in Africa, where they have super advanced, medicine, technology, and everything. And then I think that's where it started. So it's very interesting. All right, and then another thing is that Ethiopia is it's a very beautiful African country, very well governed, I would say. They've got castles. If you want to really go back, if you carbon date the castles, there were castles in Ethiopia, way before they had castles in Europe. They've got millennia old castles in there, and amazing stone structures. So I like the low-key message as well, that Africa is just not this pile of rubbish that it gets portrayed to be, and I've always been resentful of that, because I spent the first 8 years of my life in the Netherlands, and whilst I was there, whilst I was big enough basically to be aware of the news and understand that I'm watching the news now, and the news is a show on this TV where they show what's going on around the world, and all I would ever see about Africa was war, poverty, hunger, and suffering, and but when we got here, when we moved from Holland to South Africa, it was anything but. There was infrastructure, there were buildings, there was everything that they never really show in mainstream media. So it was a real nice little in the movie, how Wakanda was like a secret nation in Africa that never accepted aid, but was rated as basically as one of the poorest countries in the world, So in my thoughts on the whole issue is that Wakanda also is almost a metaphorical representation of empowered black people who don't help other black people who are in need. And I'll say this because South Africa has a lot of billionaires. Africa has got a lot of billionaires. There's like a top 10. If you go on Forbes lists, there's a list of really rich black people who are incredibly empowered, who are in a position to actually eliminate poverty and suffering in this country, but for some strange reason, or for even political reasons, don't do that. Oprah came in from the US to establish a school for girls in South Africa. And it took for her to basically step in and build a school for girls. But at that time, there were quite a lot of South African billionaires who had the money to actually do that, and they didn't. So that needs to stop, and it's a huge problem, I think, that's very prevalent in the black communities, that black people don't help each other enough. There's too much of that crab syndrome, there's too much of that whole thing that we don't lift each other up, okay? So here's where Black Panther basically balances himself against Killmonger to say, no, if we go the way that you're going, it's okay, well, if you don't want to be oppressed as a minority, then the only way to do this is to become the oppressor. No, let's help each other, let's take care of each other. Wakanda is no longer going to take or espouse that idea that, okay, I'm Wakandan, you're not, so, well, your problems are your problems and my problems are mine, we're not going to get involved, okay? Similarly, empowered black people need to do that. We need to unite. Africa needs to unite, pull its resources together, and we might actually see Wakanda become a reality.